It's safe to say Beatles fans have been spoiled the last decade on all new content. Prior to the release of the BBC and anthology albums, the only new content Apple released for fans were basically different mixes. Most of them were hit or miss with fans, so it wasn't really super eye-catching. However, you can always trust the black market, which was still filled with bootlegs. Many of them were from BBC sessions, live performances, and even studio outtakes. Luckily, the internet is full of this content, even if some are more complete than others. But even what Apple has released from its vaults, much of the media that surrounds the band has yet to be discovered. I should also point out that the current content we have is only a relatively small portion of the total amount of content made surrounding the Beatles during their career. Now, I love languages. No, not that. But I love lost media. I love the Beatles music ever since I was a kid. So, what about Beatles lost media? Well, in all honesty, I only knew a few parts of this larger puzzle. So, let's go over a few of them. Some you might know, some you might not. Live performances. So, in terms of live albums, the Beatles don't have that many. There's the Hollywood Bowl album, which was a mashup of the 3 performances at the venue, which was originally released in 1977, and as of 2022, the rooftop performance was made. Now, a few performances on the anthology albums, films and documentaries, and news coverage over the years have given us fans many opportunities to have the audio and footage, but rarely do they have both in full. One of these was the New Musical Express annual Poll Winners All-Star Concert in 1966. As the final scheduled live appearance in Britain, the Beatles manager Brandon Epstein didn't set an agreement over terms, meaning that the portion of the concert that contained the Beatles playing was not recorded. They were, however, recorded receiving their awards. Even as of recent, there have been new discoveries. One is an audio tape of the Beatles' private performance at a celebration at the EMI house, where they played For Me to You and Please Please Me. But even more importantly, there is a new recording of a live performance done at the Stowe Boarding School on April 4th, 1963, when the band played a concert at the school's theater, which incidentally was played mostly in front of a male audience. BBC's show Front Row uncovered, basically as of right now, the earliest recording of the Beatles playing in a concert before becoming the biggest band in the UK, besides the German recordings at the Star Club and such. Another interesting thing was that they played songs that were more considered a part of their BBC repertoire, such as Too Much Monkey Business, Memphis, Tennessee, and many others. Outtakes. With the amount of outtakes released by the band, most outtakes that aren't released to the public, as of April 2023 however, are more considered unreleased, many of which were first released on the anthology albums, well, officially at least. Later, when the remix projects began from 2017 with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, various outtakes from the anthology sessions and bootlegs were re-released. But when first recording these songs, many outtakes were lost to time. That's because the band ended up winding the tape they recorded on. In other words, they spooled the tape back, meaning that they would lose the recordings made. 2 notable examples of this are Good Luck Sunshine, takes 2 and 3, and the first 3 takes of I Am the Walrus. Even some master tapes of a few songs are lost, the big one being She Loves You and I'll Get You, recorded on July 1st, 1963. The Tonight Show appearance. To promote their new company, Apple, John and Paul flew to America to advertise and promote the new label, something Epstein envisioned before his death. When then host Johnny Carson was absent, the guest host would be baseball personality Joe Garagiola. Despite the audio not being super terrible, the recording of the actual interview itself was most likely recorded in front of a TV. A master tape of this whole interview could be found in the archives of The Tonight Show, but let's not hold our breath. Speaking of looking like it was recorded in front of a TV, let's not forget the BBC TV appearances. If you saw my first video on Lost Media, you might remember a section I talked about the Beatles' BBC sessions. Well, something similar happened here with their TV appearances too. The BBC throughout the years had this practice called junking. It recycled tapes of shows and performances to record new shows and performances. Notably, this happened with the early seasons of Doctor Who. Basically, those older seasons are now lost to time, meaning that they can't be recovered. A similar situation happened to the band, most notably on the show Top of the Pops. basically a show where the act would mime out the song in front of an audience. The cover performances we have right now are TV recordings, and with the tapes of the performances most likely being junked after some time, it's most likely that these can't be remastered, due to the video recording technology at that time being very low quality compared to what we have right now, and due to the fact that it's very inconsistent. The Lennon Ono films. John and Yoko's love was very frugal during 1968. One consequence of this was when Yoko joined the band, recording the White Album forward, she would always join in on the sessions. Another consequence of this love was that John and Yoko made themselves experimental films, which fit in with the hippie scene emerging from '66 onwards. Films by John and Yoko was a compilation release later on that had these films on a 2-disc DVD set, but with the exception of one film. Shown at the Institute of Contemporary Art, Self-Portrait was shown, alongside the Amsterdam Bed-In for Peace event, with other titles such as Honeymoon, Bed-In, or John and Yoko, Bed-In. The basis of Self-Portrait is a 42-minute shot of John Lennon's dick. Yeah, okay, awkward enough. John would later reflect on this event, stating that it was just supposed to get hard and then go limp. However, how the film actually ended was that John's dick came, and later stated that the cum drop was an accident. Ugh. Yoko had another idea for an alternative version of the movie, film the audience and critics' reactions alongside the shot of his dick. But because Yoko's equipment didn't record these reactions, and mostly because she's very perfectionist in her art, it was shelved away, and will possibly never be seen. In 2009, renowned film critic Philip French was one of few people who had seen Self-Portrait, and described more about what was going to happen. Quote, John and Yoko were in the cinema, and during the performance, there was a door open to the left of the screen with a sharp red light directed towards the auditorium. No one inquired about this, but it was later revealed Yoko had installed equipment to film the critics' reaction to John's comings and goings. The audience was to be one half of a split-screen feature, John showing his all, the critics responding to it frame by frame. Fortunately or unfortunately, Yoko's apparatus recorded nothing. Sighs of relief all around. Otherwise, that film critics circle might now be part of a permanent installation projected on the wall of Liverpool's John Lennon International Airport. Yikes.